Hello and welcome to the Box Score Network YouTube channel. I am Simon Short. Joining me tonight is Ben Parker, Andy Lohman, Parker Davila of Box Score Network. We are all here to react to the Micah Parsons trade from the Dallas Cowboys to the Green Bay Packers emergency reaction pod. We're going to dive right into it. Parker is here. Parker is of two peas on a pod. Parker, welcome in. How are you doing? Resident Cowboys fan. Dive in, man. Micah Parsons is out the door after a lengthy and troubled negotiation period. How are you feeling about Micah being gone? And then how do you feel about what's left of the Dallas Cowboys for the 2025 season?
I'm gonna answer your first question first. I've been better. I've definitely had better days. So I'm not doing too hot. It's a rough question to ask off rip on a day like today. But
I did just rip the band-aid off. Sorry, man.
yeah, to get into the
Thoughts to
Micah
you.
trade, like number one, like what comes out of the trade, right? We get two first round picks and a defensive tackle, Pro Bowler. Pro Bowler is kind of like one of those things where it's just anybody can be a Pro Bowler nowadays. So something I don't really want to talk about, and you're going to talk about the presser where Jerry used that, I think, 5 times in his
So many
presser.
times.
And it's like, I don't know if we should really stress that we got a Pro Bowler out of this. I think we should really look forward into what comes after that. The cons, like number one, like Dallas is not winning anything this year. Like this takes you out of competition for the NFC East. This takes you out of like honestly at this point, I want the Cowboys to lose a lot of football games because it just makes everything more valuable at this point. Like is this the first domino? Does Dak Prescott get traded after this? Like this is just all in my mind as a Cowboys fan. It's like, okay, where could this possibly lead to? Right? Like how different can the Cowboys look after this 2027 draft? Um, and we're losing obviously one of the best defense players in the league. The Green Bay Packers are getting an absolute game breaker on their side of the ball from us. There are some pluses though, because like in my head, the Cowboys can't win realistically paying three guys $140 million a year. Like there's not enough talent on your roster at that point to win with that three players taking up that much cap space. Like it just makes no sense. The other pro that I look at is that before, let's just go back to March where Jerry released that's whenever he gave the offer of 40.5 million a year for 4 years to Micah for 202 million. In Jerry's head now that we've dealt Micah, not only do we get two first round picks, not only do we get this defensive tackle, we also have $200 million that you were about to spend that we can now spend somewhere else. That is free money in Jerry Jones's head. Like, let's say, that was money we were willing to just allocate all to one soul, one player that is honestly one play away from ending a career. Any player in the NFL is one play away from not being able to play football again. Like we've seen, it's rare, but it happens. So I think putting that kind of money and that kind of investment into a player now, if of the three players we paid, do I think Micah Parsons is the most worthy? Absolutely. But it's just the order they fell in. The Cowboys drafted three players that are all worth max contracts, and you can't pay all three if you want to win. That just is what it is. It's not like we went out and picked them up from free agency and now we have to pay them. Like we solely drafted all three of these guys, and it just happens to be that all three of these guys are worth that much money at this point. So I think it's a smart move to move. Cowboys could have gotten the farm for Micah Parsons, so getting what we got kind of is a little disappointing, but the deal's done. I mean, it is what it is. That's kind of where I sit with this whole Dallas Cowboys thing, in a little nutshell there.
Andy, your team now has Micah Parsons. How do you feel about that?
I'm feeling pretty great, if I'm being honest. It's funny, I was like, this had been kind of rumored for a while now, and I wasn't following it super closely. And then you texted me. I was at the gym. I was just like checking my phone in between sets, and you were texting me. You texted me pod, and I thought you were talking about our niche silly soccer podcast. I'm like, oh yeah, we missed the last one. We'll get to it back on Monday. I went check Twitter. I went, oh yeah. I mean, we got to. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
I believe
hard
I
to
called
not
you a
get excited.
dingus. I believe dingus was
Yeah, you
mentioned.
did call me Ding, which is honestly fair. Hard to not get excited about signing a guy who, and maybe Pro Bowls don't mean anything, but he's made a Pro Bowl every season he's played in the
He's all
league.
pro. Yeah.
Twice All Pro, Rookie of the Year, double-digit sack numbers every single year of his career, even last year when he was only playing 13 games. Um, I do feel obligated to carve out a little bit of time to give Kenny Clark his flowers. I love Kenny Clark. He's awesome. He did a lot of dirty work in the interior of the defensive line. He's a fan
Hmm.
favorite. He's played his entire career in Green Bay.
Yep.
Um, Starting to probably like leave kind of the window of his prime. So in terms of just like a general, sporting management standpoint, yeah, like probably not a huge loss, but I do think it's important to recognize like the emotional part of sports. Like I love Kenny Clark.
Heck yeah.
Like he's an awesome dude. So I'm sad to see him go, but like, yeah, like if giving up Kenny Clark and two first rounders for Micah Parsons, yeah, I'll take that every day, especially because like those first rounders, ideally, hopefully, are going to be late in the first round if everything
Right.
goes to plan. So like, okay, like take the 27th pick, like that's fine. Like coming into this season before what 5 hours ago, like I was cautiously optimistic about the Packers. I mean, last year, lost to the Eagles in the wild card, but only 22-10. Philly was an absolute juggernaut last year. They scored more points in the next three playoff games. The NFC Championship, Super Bowl were both blowouts. It's like all things considered, it's like okay, you lose in the wild card round, but like within context, they're not a horrible showing. You have a great QB in Jordan Love. Obviously not in like the elite tier of like Lamar and Mahomes and Allen, but probably what, like in the second tier, maybe like a half step behind Burrow and Justin Herbert. Wide receiver room full of young talent with Reed and Dobbs and Wicks. Hopefully Christian Watson's healthy soon. We actually went and drafted a wide receiver in the first round. That has not happened in like several decades, I don't think, for us. Um, we got like four tight ends on the roster for some reason, but like Tucker Kraft is a great option. Obviously Josh Jacobs last year established himself as like a top tier running back. So like all of like the pieces are kind of there offensively. The line is interesting. Josh Myers leaves, but Elton Jenkins is a Swiss Army knife, so he slides to center. Made another like we may have made more free agent signings this offseason than we have in the past like 15 years combined. Bringing Aaron Banks to fit in at left guard. So like you're feeling like there's still questions. Like the wide receiver room isn't like fully proven yet. Like there's a lot of potential there, but like, you know, could go wrong. Offensive line, we're shaking things up. And then like defensively, I mean, you guys talked about at one point the kind of DB by committee, if you will, with
Hmm.
no Jair Alexander. Um, and honestly, like, I mean, he was great, but is that in hindsight maybe an addition by subtraction? Like,
Hmm.
one thing we talk about on our podcast all the time is a term called shithousery, and no one embodies cornerback shithousery like Jair Alexander, which is fun and great, but like sometimes it gets to the point it's like, all right, man, can you just like please shut up and play football? And he's like super injury prone too. So and Nick Hobbs is a good free agent sign there too. So I think just the depth there, and we had some nice pieces. I mean, Adrian Cooper breakout star last year. Quay
Hmm.
Walker's an animal. Isaiah McDuffie's nice. Like I thought was kind of a surprise for me as like a veteran presence. I thought he played
Hmm.
very well last year. And Rashawn Gary is great on the line, but like he can't do it all by himself. And now you have Micah freaking Parsons lining up on the other side, and Van Ness is not bad. And we actually have a kicker that can make field goals in Brandon McManus. That was not a thing that we had at the beginning of the year last year. Um, yeah, so I am ecstatic in summary about the state of things. It feels like I think the big level thought it feels like a new day in Green Bay. Like for most of the 21st century, we were a draft and develop team, which obviously worked very well. I mean,
Hmm.
we snuck a Super Bowl in there. We've been to a bunch of NFC Championship games, pretty high winning percentage. Hall of Fame quarterbacks helped that a lot, but like even still, like the pieces around that have gone well. But like I almost wonder if the Xavier McKinney signing last year was kind of like a proof of concept of like, hey, you can go out and make splashy free agent signings and it can work really well. I mean, McKinney was probably the best free agent signing we've had since Charles Woodson. Like that's kind of
Yep.
how
Hmm.
big the gap was. And obviously this wasn't a free agent, this was a trade. But like off-season big moves like this are not the Packers' MO, and nor are drafting wide receivers in the first round. And now we're doing all of it. Um, yeah, I'm excited. I mean, obviously, like you can't predict anything. Football's a crazy game. Injuries happen, but all things considered, it seems like all the pieces are in place for what could be a very, very fun year.
I'm really excited about the Packers. I'm going to talk about them more on the Simon and Friends podcast next week. So be on the lookout for that. I'm sure Ben will chime in with the Packers stuff. I want to specifically go through the Jerry Jones press conference now. So we've given you a reaction from a Cowboys fan. We've given you a reaction from a Packers fan. As somebody that does not believe in taking press conferences to heart, especially ones from Jerry Jones, this was appointment viewing for me, and I went back and I watched this. So I'm going to present these things, some of my major takeaways to Ben, and just my running thoughts of the notes I took. And I want Ben to then kind of parse out what he thinks about this because Ben and I like to think about this from the management side a lot. So Ben, I wrote down the first one of the first things Parker said. They got a he opened up with we got a Pro Bowl player at a position of need. And then he talked about the importance of run defense for 5.5 minutes and why that is the reason they've lost playoff games. Um, this immediately gave me the comparison. Not only is Dallas trading another young superstar in his prime for nothing at the like 11th hour of something, right? But they're doing it for an older player who's like a grittier, a more gritty style player, right? So the Mavericks trade Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis because defense wins championships, and now Jerry Jones is trading Micah Parsons for Kenny Clark because uh, run defense is their main issue. So I love that. So Kenny Clark, the Pro Bowl run defense kind of thing. Um, Jerry Jones says I could have had Micah back in April, but I didn't go through the owner and I didn't go through the agent, David Mulligetta, and I honored that. And then he goes into what they got in the trade, not only Kenny Clark, but also the two draft picks. And oh my God, he literally did the Peter Griffin Family Guy meme of this draft pick could be anything. It could even be Michael Parsons. He could One of these draft picks could even be a Pro Bowl player. You literally trade an all pro player. People were posting that on Twitter. I thought they were like reaching, like just making the prayer. No, he literally said that, which is hilarious. Um, Now here's something that was interesting, and I think is almost a saving grace, but it's a concept we've talked about a lot, which is falling backwards into things. He says, "What can Parsons do for us in the future at that number? You're not paying the 40 plus million a year for what he did his first 4 years, which were great. You're paying for what he's going to do in the next 4 years. But if it's going to be essentially, if it's going to be the same thing though, because we don't have enough good players, to Parker's point, we're paying 7/8 of our cap to three guys. Like, what is that really going to do for us? We decided, we didn't want to do that. Okay, yeah, you say that now, but are you only saying that because you didn't get the contract done, right? Versus that was actually a plan that we had at the beginning of the year. Um, he said, we have a long and strong depth from our pass rush, aside from Micah Parsons. Um, Looking on our lads real quick, Dante Fowler is an edge rusher, Marshall Nealand, who Parker missed last year, right? His rookie year with an injury.
Yeah,
Or did he?
man.
Yeah.
It's not as depthy as Jerry might make it seem.
Sam Williams, who for one reason or another can't stay on the field. Donovan Ezaraku, who we do like. Nice, a nice rookie there, but certainly not a Micah Parsons comparison as of right now. Um, here's my favorite. Don't rule out that we can use these picks to go get someone right now. This man keeps drumming up business, baby. We have a week until the first game of the season, and all week, all we're going to do is talk about who else the Cowboys can trade for with a first round draft pick. Oh my God, this man is cooking. For 2 months until the trade deadline, every trade deadline preview is going to mention that the Cowboys have four first round draft picks. Every ESPN show is going to lead off with the fact that the Cowboys have four first round draft picks in 2 years. This man knows what he's freaking doing, and it's freaking awesome. My last thing about the negotiations. Jerry is saying that he and Micah had that in-person conversation in his office about the contract negotiations without Mulligetta. Parsons came back from his vacation overseas, wanted to have the contract negotiations, and then Parsons leaves. He calls Jerry. They continue the negotiations, right? Parsons is like getting them down. They're like making all these concessions in the contract, and then Parsons goes to Stephen Jones, right, and is having phone calls with him, and they're making concessions and negotiations. And then Parsons and Mulligetta call Jerry Jones together and they say, let's start negotiating. Let's start negotiating. And Jerry Jones says, I'm not negotiating anymore. That's what Jerry Jones says. Meanwhile, what Micah Parsons posted on Twitter when he does the notes app, right, of the trade requests, he says, I was in the room with Jerry. We were talking. We were going over numbers. I leave the room. I call back with my agent. And Jerry says, we already made the negotiations. I'm not talking to your agent. So now we have these two conflicting stories about what's going on here. I don't necessarily need you to weigh on what you think is right, but or who you think is telling the truth. But like, if you want to, go for it. I just thought that was another interesting thing. And then above all else, Jerry just loves this. He was having so much fun. It was cool to see. I love when people are having fun and loving what they're doing. So good on Jerry. Ben Parker, you need an addendum to
Yeah,
that real quick.
yeah.
What do you
One
want
more thing. Yeah, yeah. You missed like the most important part of the press conference, and it's like been this way for like the last 6 months watching Jerry Jones talk about this guy. If I heard Jerry Jones call Micah Parsons Michael, one more freaking time, dude.
I
I
did
was
see a
gonna
lot of people say that on Twitter.
Dude, if you go look at him and Stephen A. It's like it's an hour long video, but you can fast forward and just hear him say, Michael is such a great player. Michael is. I was like, oh my god, you don't. No wonder you're not paying the guy 40 million. You don't know his dang name. Like you don't
A
know.
couple of the times, because people were also talking about the Michael Irving interview he did. So I think a couple of times he was actually confused. And he's very old, guys. My grandparents were forgetting my name by the end. So
So
like I just want to like
Why is he running a football team?
I
Why
mean
is he
that's a whole
why?
different thing. You're right about that. That's a
All
whole
right.
different. I just don't
I
think it's
had to bring up the Michael thing. Outside of that, you hit every
you're
point.
representing Cowboys Nation here. They definitely feel that way because I also saw that on Twitter. Ben, react to all things Jerry Jones, and then when you're done with that, tell us, I guess, if you think the Packers are good, which is important.
Yeah, Jerry is an unending fountain of content, right? He's the reason that ESPN and all the spinoff shows for the past 2 decades have stayed in business. He's fantastic as far as creating content. Really, really, really enjoy getting to talk about whatever he's talking about, good or bad. He's just never stops with that. Two things happened here. Number one, Jerry was willing to offer a lot of money to Micah, but Jerry ultimately just did not want to pay Micah that top dollar that Micah knew he could get. That's the bottom line behind all of this. Obviously Jerry was willing to put out a pretty good deal, which would have tied them back into 3 stars making a ton of money, which probably would have further hindered their ability to compete for a Super Bowl. Jerry really didn't want to do that, but he was willing to a certain degree, but he wasn't this willing. And that really, I think, was the driving point behind all of this. But then combined with that, somebody in the building, I'll never know if it was Steven or if it was, one of the other guys in the back room, somebody in the building was talking to Jerry and got him to understand, hey, this isn't great roster building. Parker mentioned that right off from the start. When you have, man cannot live by bread alone, right? You can't live with only stars at the NFL level. You need more breadth and depth than that. And if you already weren't winning Super Bowls when all 3 of them were on rookie contracts, you're sure as heck not going to win Super Bowls when they're all making top dollar, and they all 3 are. And to a degree, they deserve it, depending on how you want to, frame that. Dallas wasn't going to be able to win that. So somebody in the building, I'm sure, got to Jerry and told him that side of it as well. And that's the 2 reasons this deal didn't get done. That's it. So it surprised me a little bit. Out of Hendrickson and Scary Terry and Micah all summer, if I could have picked one guy that would have been traded, I think Micah would have been third out of that group. I really thought
Mhm.
they were going to get it done. Didn't happen. So, fascinating stuff. Jerry, as always.
Um, my final. We'll take it around the horn one more time, real quick. But my final thoughts here are: I do think Dallas, in the end, is going to like feel good about this. Like I said, bass backwards into a good thing. They are going to have 4 first-round picks. He was very adamant at one point that it was to continue to build around Dak and CD, but like Parker said, like who knows if they have a chance to get Arch Manning, like they're probably going to go get Arch Manning, whether it's one of the next 2 seasons or not. So we'll just wait and see what all that, because they're also very good at drafting, and like this also works for the Packers because it's like, man, we've used a lot of first round picks on defense and none of these guys have hit. To Andy's point of, okay, maybe we do get a second contract guy. Maybe we get an Xavier McKinney. Maybe we get a Micah Parsons. And wow, a Nate Hobbs. Okay, it's like building an NBA team where it's like you draft, and then you go trade for a veteran and you sign one big free agent on top of that, and now you have a full team. So I think in the end, this balances out well for both sides. But I don't want to do what Jerry Jones tried to say at the beginning and pretend that Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks is going to help them this season. Like it's the way this defense is from a injury standpoint right now and a youth standpoint right now. The defense is just not going to be there this season for them to have the ceiling that I was prepared to say they were going to get to this year. Which I was thinking like 9-10 wins wild card potentially for Dallas this season, but that defense is just not going to be there, and that's okay. Take a step back. Jerry won't admit it. Maybe he doesn't actually think that's the issue. I saw somebody, whether it was one of the beat writers or somebody from one of the major outlets, was talking about how they've always focused on, and Parker's always talked about this, the O line and the D line, and going to Parsons, who was like off ball linebacker coming out, so, transitioning to edge rusher. Even just one step back from the line was like kind of a big break for them in that thinking. So this kind of gives them a chance to like recommit since that physicality has gone away from Dallas in the last couple seasons. They could continue to finish off that offensive line, continue to finish off that defensive line. Hope the young corners develop. CD, Dak are still there to propel the offense. But then, yeah, man, Green Bay, it's going to be so fun. I had so many questions about the defense, but you put a 5-star pass rusher in that, and that makes everybody's job easier.
It answers a
So
lot of questions, doesn't it?
it's like having a cheat sheet a little bit. It's it's funny how those things work out. So in the end, it's not great for Dallas right now, but I think it's going to be okay in the future. Green Bay, this is awesome right now. I think they're inner circle, and Jerry Jones forever. Parker, one last thought.
Yeah, this is like my last thing I actually didn't touch on that I think is huge, and you'll be interested in this because there's somebody that their contract ends after this year, and if he plays really well in Dallas, could legitimately have a Jamar Chase, T. Higgins conversation. Like if George Pickens comes out and is a top three, number two wide receiver, Jerry Jones just freed up $200 million. Like, can
Yep.
George Pickens get paid in Dallas? Can
Yep.
he? There's another world too where Dallas isn't winning this year because we all agree now. I think all four of us agree that Dallas isn't going to win this year, right? So there's also that opportunity where George Pickens halfway through the season crashes out and it hates Dallas because we're not winning anything and he's not getting the yards or the touchdowns to provide proof for his next contract wherever he goes. Like maybe he just has a blow. I think that having that free money really does give Jerry the flexibility to see if he likes a second opportunity or a second pass catcher as much as he thinks he does. Maybe you brought up the Amari Cooper thing back in the day. Like we had the opportunity to have Amari Cooper and CD Lamb. Like now we have the opportunity to go back and fix that and get CD Lamb and George Pickens. And maybe find another Zeke in the draft somewhere with one of these 5 picks we're gonna have or 6 picks we're gonna have over the next 3 seasons in the first round. So I think Dallas is just a good 2 years away from making this all make sense. And God, I just hope Jerry Jones doesn't find a way to mess it up like he has in the past.
Pickens is a free agent. Deron Bland is a free agent. And by the way, Kenny Clark, like he's signed under contract
Pro
for
Bowler.
2 more years. Pro Bowler Kenny Clark is signed for 2 more years after this year.
I will
He's
hear
got
no Kenny Clark slander. I just want to make
he's,
that very clear.
he's got cap hits of 21.5 million and 20 million the next 2 years with no guaranteed money. A little ding just went off in Ben's brain right there. They're gonna have to restructure that or rip that up and do a new contract if they're keeping Kenny Clark around. They're not keeping him at 21.5 mil a cap hit for next season. So, but does this give you Kenny Clark, George Pickens, Deron Bland, all re-signed, and one other guy, and then the draft picks? Andy, one last note for the Packers.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point about the draft picks and maybe lack thereof for the next couple of years. It feels like we're pushing the chips in for a Super Bowl, and we've had several NFC Championship appearances over the past, 10, 15 years with not nearly the appropriate amount of Super Bowl appearances. I think it's the right time to make the move. I think it's the right decision, but it's also a matter of like if you don't get to a Super Bowl with this team and this setup in the next, there's a little bit of a window, but maybe next 2 to 3 years, like
Yeah.
you almost have to clean house. But it's going to be really, really exciting. I do also think it's worth noting that we're out talking about former Arkansas Razorback great Jerry Jones, 1964 national champion Razorback
I was waiting for you to
Jerry
bring this up.
Jones.
I was waiting for you to say
Um,
this.
and then
Uh,
one final note for you, Simon. We talked about Doncic and Davis. How does Paige Beckers fit into the Dallas, sports question and all of this now?
Cooper Flag. I don't know. I don't have a Cowboys comp. Tyler Booker, Tyler Booker, uh, just a decorated college athlete, coming in and immediately ready to dominate the league at their respective position. Does that sound good? Do we
Yeah,
like that?
love it.
Okay, Ben, one final thought.
And Andy stole basically exactly what I was going to say. The
We're going Paige
Packers
Beckers.
now are on a 2 year window, and that's what it is. They could extend that, but it's 2 years. So it's this year and it's next year. You expect Micah Parsons to be at his prime. That cap number does tighten up their cap, but they can handle it. They didn't have a lot of other guys eating that up. They had the flex. Jordan Love, Simon, you've mentioned it. Some of these quarterbacks are getting a little bit more like in the mid-level quarterback money range. And even though it does stack up over the next 3 seasons, it still doesn't make it unmanageable when you add in the Micah thing and who else they've got there as far as the cap goes. So they can handle that. But it was time. You had a pretty good roster. You've got a coach that you trust to put it all together. You've got a defensive coordinator who did a good job in his first season. So everything's there. All you really needed was that star, and edge had been a thing that we talked about in the draft for the Packers. They didn't go
Hmm.
that route, and that's okay. They were doing other things. That's fine. But Micah Parsons coming in takes that defense from what I thought would be solid to, hey, now how good can we be once he's, in full gear here? So really good move. It reminds me of Reggie White coming over to the Packers in the early 90s. I got to see that myself. That's the last time they've had a player this good. And Micah is not Reggie White, but Micah's up there in the discussions of being able to really amp up your defense. So it really does give you that chance for the next 2 years at least, and maybe beyond. But the next 2 years, the Packers are in that conversation.
We should note, just for the record, that it is reported that Micah Parsons is getting a 4-year, $188 million contract with $120 million fully guaranteed from Green Bay. That would be way tops on total value among edge rushers. It would be the third highest among total guaranteed. It would be way top among average per year, which is $47 million a year, which is way above where TJ Watt is. But you got to remember, this is a second contract guy. Watt, Garrett, Hunter, Crosby, Hendrickson, Hines Allen, those guys are on third contracts, fourth contracts. These guys are 30. Parsons is 25. So it makes sense that he completely kind of blew out the market, especially for Green Bay, who needed the help, like Ben said. All right, that's going to do it. That was Box Score Network YouTube channel. Thank you to Parker for being here from Two Piece. Thank you to Ben for being here from Odds On Favorite. Andy, I didn't even give you a full introduction. First time on the Box Score Network YouTube channel. Andy is one half of our Brilliant Soccer podcast because CONCACAF. So make sure you check that out as well. But in the meantime, make sure you check out everything that's happening on this channel, all the podcast feeds that we have going, and we will talk to you guys again soon. Thank you so much. Have a good one.